Hello, I'm Lucy from Colouring in the Midst of Madness, and today I'm going to be doing a colour along in this, the 2021 calendar, Inky Wonderlands by Johanna Basford. So I'm going to colour the first image, and I'm having to bend it back on itself so that it fits in shot. And I'm going to be using Stabilo fine liners and fibre tip pens. So these are what they look like. So the yellow ones are the fine liners and the coloured ones are the fibre tips. So I am going to start with red. Now I've picked out my colours already because I find it quite difficult to choose sometimes. So this is colour number 19 and this one's one of the fibre tips, but it doesn't actually matter what you use. And I'm just going to start filling in the spaces. Now I've decided to use a wet medium rather than pencils for this page because on the front cover there is some foiling and it creates these little indents, which I'm not sure if you'll be able to see, but there's one up here and there are a couple that are actually on the bit of the image that you colour. And I noticed in one of the previous editions of the calendars that when I coloured the first page, that when you're using pencils, they colour really oddly when you go into those grooves. And so thankfully that time I was using Inktense pencils, and so I just went over them with water and it sorted out the problem. But it did make me realise that I need to be using wet media on the first page of each of these calendars. Now you will notice that I colour in quite a strange way, so I tend to skip about quite a lot. I don't really know why. I find it quite hard to concentrate and I get bored quite easily, so I don't tend to like colouring with the same colour for very long. So I tend to kind of skip about. I do tend to change my colouring habits a bit when I'm filming, just to make it easier. So my plan is for all of these butterflies to be coloured in rainbow colours. So obviously I'm starting with red at the moment, and then it's going to go all the way out to pink, which I know isn't a traditional rainbow, and I always hate it when products have pink in their rainbows. But number-wise it worked better for this number of butterflies, and also I don't really have much indigo. So I thought rather than using indigo, I'd just go all out and use some pink. It's funny how self-conscious you get when you're videoing, because I haven't done a video in, I think, about 6-7 months. My last one was reviewing Worlds Within Worlds by Kirby Roseanne. And it's surprisingly difficult to multitask. Even though I'm trying to use my mouth and my hand, it's really quite difficult working out what to say and remembering to carry on colouring. So there probably will be a lot of silences while I desperately try and work out what on earth to say. And this is part of why I don't do videos very often anymore, because I just go blank. And I don't tend to know what to talk about, and I feel like what I'll talk about will be very boring. And so I put myself off most of the time. But I've been wanting to do one for ages and ages, and I just thought, well, I really need to actually do it. So we'll go on to the next colour, which is again another fibre tip. And this is number 50. And these are some of my favourite pens, the Stabilo pens, because they just colour really smoothly. They're not scratchy. You may be able to hear the sound, but they don't feel like they're dragging or anything. And they're not scratchy. and they don't tend to leave streak marks if you colour quite carefully. Now when I get to some of the larger sections, I'll show you how I colour those in a streak-free way, because there is a bit of a technique and it works really well now I've worked out how to do it. Because I used to hate it when you accidentally over-colour a section where you're colouring up to where you've previously coloured and you get that horrible line. So it's really nice to have worked out how to not do that. So yes, I hadn't planned to do a video today at all, but we've been having all sorts of internet problems, and we had an engineer out and he fixed it, and then as soon as Joe went to work today, it died. So I was like, right, okay, well, I'll watch some TV, and then the TV signal died as well. So I think it was a sign that I probably needed to get off some screens, albeit obviously I'm using one to record this, but that doesn't count because I'm not looking at it. Gosh, I can't believe how ropey at this I am. My hand feels all weird. I haven't coloured for, well, since my last video actually. I've been doing other creative stuff, but I haven't been colouring. So yes, it feels very, very weird doing stuff with pens again. But at least they're nice and quick, and that's one of the benefits of colouring with pens. And actually, whenever I'm feeling anxious or stressed, they're my go-to. I find all of the shading and blending way too much when I'm not well. So I like to get my pens out. So the next one is number 48. I'm so sorry about my sniffing. I've got really bad allergies and I should have taken an antihistamine and I haven't. So hopefully you'll manage to bear with me. I can't bear sniffing, so I'd be turning off right now, but hopefully you'll bear with me. But yes, it's amazing how lost I get really, really quickly when I don't have internet and TV and stuff. And because my concentration hasn't been very good, I struggle to know kind of what to do. But I received this through the post yesterday to review. So I already knew that I needed to be colouring pages and starting my review. And I thought, oh, well, I've been promising colour-alongs for, I think, 2 years since I last did the first one I've ever done. And yeah, I thought, right, well, I'll do this because I know most colour-alongs are all super snazzy pencils and God knows how many different colours and all sorts of blending and shading techniques, and those are really great. But I know a lot of people find just picking colours quite tricky, and a lot of people have asked me to kind of say how I pick my colours, and actually I kind of don't really have a technique other than the Stabilo colours work brilliantly together. So far, and obviously it'll be famous last words with this, but so far I don't think I've ever done a page that I didn't like with Stabilos, because they just go together. They're brilliant. So that's our reds done. Right, so I'm going to go on to orange, and I'm going to do these big butterflies. So yes, this technique for having streak-free colouring, you need to work relatively quickly, and I'm hoping that you can see, but I'm sort of colouring forwards and backwards over the same spot, but I'm not letting it dry. So you just keep going up and down and up and down, constantly slightly colouring over the bit that you last did. But what I'm not doing is colouring it in blocks. So what lots of people do is colour kind of across sideways as high as they can, and then they colour up to it on the next go. So you'd kind of colour like this and then like that, and where the bits overlap you get this horrible, in fact I can show you on here, you get this horrible streaking. So if I do that, you can see it's nice and smooth. And then if I do this, bring it out to the camera, you can see that there's this streak here. And that's what we're trying to avoid. Whereas if you do this, see, it dries much, much smoother. So that's my little tip for today. So obviously on small areas it doesn't matter so much because it doesn't dry as quickly. And the Stabilo pens are really good because they're really juicy. So they're not wet. So they shouldn't be, no, they're not coming through at all. But they're wet enough that they don't sort of dry on contact, which gives you a lot more wiggle room for being able to colour like this and not get the streaks. And they are really good because they don't show direction of colour either, because I've just realised I've coloured that in a completely different direction from that, and it's, oh sorry, just kicked the tripod. And it doesn't particularly show up that I've coloured in a different direction. In general, don't do that. It's a really bad habit to get into of just colouring any which way. You are definitely better colouring directionally. But yeah, with colour schemes and advice about them, what I always say is, if in doubt, go for rainbows, because I've never seen them not work. They're so vibrant in colour and they do just work really, really well together. And especially, as I say, with these Stabilo pens. I sound like I'm trying to sell them. I'm not. They're just my absolute favourites. And for how I hold pens and things, I find them very comfortable to use, even though I'm so out of practice and I feel like my hand's shaking. But they're really good. And they last ages as well, I find. So the colours I'm using are from the biggest set available, which is the tins of 50. So not all of the colours I'm using are in the smaller sets of fine liners and fibre tips. But you can always substitute them. Right, I'm bored of that colour, so I'll go back to that in a minute. Oh, I haven't told you what colour this is. So this is number 54. So this is slightly lighter yellower orange. But they're really good because they've got quite small nibs, or brush tips, I guess. But they cover quite a wide area. I just really like them. They're definitely my favourite felt tips to use. And they're just so bright. So I thought I'd start on this early, this calendar, because obviously it's for 2021. And I say every year, because I've been reviewing colouring calendars, I think, since 2015. And I say every year that I'm going to colour a whole one. And I looked through all of the ones that I've got earlier. And the most I've managed was 5 images in one calendar. In fact, it might have even been 6. And I was quite pleased with that, and it was really lovely actually looking at all of the pages that I'd done, because I've forgotten loads of them, because obviously I've coloured hundreds of images over the years and I don't sort of look through them all, and I keep mine in the books, so I don't sort of often go back and look at them. But it was so nice looking back at all the things I've done and completely forgotten about. And it was quite a confidence boost actually, because I can do a lot more than I think I can, which was really nice. So I was then thinking, oh, well, I should probably be doing it in fancy pencils and taking hours and hours and hours. And I just thought it instantly started putting me off because I've been quite anxious recently and I've got a lot going on. And I just thought, no, I plan to do this with pens. I'm going to do it with pens. But I am hoping that this year might be the year that I actually do colour in a whole colourable calendar. And I'm hoping to do it with all different kind of brands and mediums. So this will be my Stabilo pen page. I'm not sure what other mediums I will use. Definitely dough and Tinktense pencils because they're lots of fun to use. And definitely my Holbeins because I adore those. And the Caran d'Ache Luminance. And then I'm not sure beyond that. But yeah, there's 13 images in this because obviously you've got this first page which is for the last 4 months of 2020. So by the end of this, I will be 1/13 of the way through my project. So this is the darker orange again. And as you can tell by now, I know I haven't explicitly stated, but hopefully it's obvious that I'm, with each colour and type of butterfly, I'm going to do them all identical. And I find that often works really well. It makes it a lot more striking. It's definitely true that less is more quite often, especially if you're using quite a lot of colours. If you, like, rather than sort of mixing and matching on each butterfly, obviously I've done red, I'm doing orange, I'm going to do yellow and green and so on. And it makes them very eye-catching if you pick a specific colour scheme for each one and then make everything that looks like that the same. I don't know if it's because I'm such an anxious person, but I do get very overwhelmed by kind of too much stimulus, and that can be just too much visual information a lot of the time. So I love bright colours, but I do find that if there's too many and they're too kind of all over the place, it gets a bit much. Right. It's so weird colouring on camera. I do get very self-conscious about it because I don't colour like this. Like when I colour normally, I'm hunched up practically in a ball on the sofa usually, and it's turned upside down, and obviously you can tell that I'm already finding that I need to turn it more than I did at the beginning when I was desperately trying to keep it still, but I don't like colouring things upside down. And so if I'd have been colouring this off camera, every time I do a butterfly, I would be turning it so that it's up the right way for how I'm looking at that specific one. So obviously on a page like this, I'd be turning it all the time, but that's just very distracting on camera. So I'm not doing that. But it does mean I'm very conscious of my instinct to move the calendar, that I'm having to then fight and go, no, you can colour it anyway, just leave it alone. But yeah, I'm kind of glad that my internet and TV stopped working because I think I needed a bit of a shove in this direction. And like I said, I've been really quite stressed recently. We've got a lot going on. And I think I needed some chill out time that wasn't involving screens and social media and having my phone constantly going off. Or wondering why it's not going off because the internet's died again. So it's quite nice knowing that I've put it on Do Not Disturb so that I don't get disturbed while I'm recording this, because you can guarantee that that's what would happen. And that I can just focus on making this page look pretty. As you can tell, my brain has gone completely blank and I've got absolutely no idea what to talk about. Whenever I do these things, I always think, God, these people must be so bored. And I can't tell if you'll be more bored with me being silent or more bored hearing all the random dull things that I'm saying. It's fun being in my brain. This is the kind of thing I sit and worry about every day. In fact, I wrote a Facebook post the other day about a status thing about just a really random insight into social anxiety, because we live in a second floor flat and our lounge wall is the wall onto the stairs. And so you can hear people coming up to any of the flats up here. So there's 3 of us up here. And I just spent hours at the weekend just kind of, my brain just wouldn't shut off from listening. And so I had the TV on and I think I was scrolling through social media and doing all sorts. But every time someone went downstairs or upstairs, my brain was just wondering who it was, what they were doing, if they were for me, if I needed to get up. And because of how our flat's laid out, it's quite a long walk from the end of the lounge to our front door, because you have to go all the way back on yourself. So our front door is through the wall next to where our sofa is. And it sounds so ridiculous. I realise how kind of pathetic it sounds. But yeah, I will sometimes like mute the TV or move stuff off my lap so that I can move quicker to the door if I need to. It's so crazy. Right, so we're going to go on to yellow. I'm just trying to work out which way around to do this because I've got a brighter yellow and a dark yellow. I think I'm going to use this one. So this one is number 24. Yeah. Oh, see, now I'm torn. Yeah, okay. I've decided. But yeah, I posted about this issue that I have on social media, fully expecting people to either completely ignore it or basically tell me that I was mad. And actually it was really sweet because a few other people who I know who also have social anxiety were saying that they feel either the same in that situation, or they were telling me about situations that are difficult for them, that are also equally just bizarre to anyone that doesn't suffer from social anxiety. And it was really nice. It was really nice to be able to kind of talk to other people and not feel quite so crazy. Because I know to most people, like, answering the door isn't a big deal, but like genuinely, I've actually started writing a blog post about it because I realised it was actually a much bigger topic than I thought. But I will plan when I'm going to shower so that I won't be in my dressing gown or in the shower when the postman comes. So like I know what time our postman comes, and what window I shouldn't wash in, as in window of time, not like not washing in front of a window. That would be very weird. I definitely wouldn't do that with social anxiety. But yeah, it's just things like that, it worries me so much, and I try and work out who it might be if we get someone random to the door, so that I know what to say, because when I'm put on the spot, I have no idea what to say to people, and I often say the wrong thing because I just go completely blank. And so I try and kind of preempt absolutely everything, but it's just exhausting. Like, having to be that kind of on edge is really no fun at all. And yeah, I'm always sad when people get it, because you know that then they're suffering too. But it was really nice to be able to talk to people the other day and realise that it's not just me that has these difficulties, and who also feels like they're kind of mad for feeling that way about such kind of small things. Because I'm like it with workmen. We've had various issues with the flat because we're new here, and like things just kind of go wrong or things like that. And when we've had workmen, I haven't known whether to offer them drinks or not, because I always worry that they won't like the drink I make. But then I think, well, is that better or worse than not offering them a drink and them thinking, oh gosh, isn't she rude for not offering? It's horrible. And yeah, I seem to spend my life sitting and thinking about these things and worrying about getting them wrong, and then probably getting them wrong because I've spent so much time worrying that I then think it's been an inappropriate amount of time that they've been in my house that I haven't offered them a drink, and so I'm just going to have to go with that and not. It's absolutely ridiculous. But yeah, I found after writing this status that actually when I started then thinking about it more, I realised that there are loads of things, because like when people ask why I'm anxious or what it's like, it's really quite hard to explain, because I mean, first off, I don't tend to know why I'm anxious, and actually until I was diagnosed, I didn't really realise I had social anxiety, because I completely wrongly kind of thought that extroverts like me didn't get social anxiety, because a lot of the stuff you read about it says that people are shy, and I'm not, and I never have been. I've always loved being around people, but now I just worry about every aspect of it. I have always loved being around people. But yeah, it's not like one thing that I worry about. It is like every aspect. So it's, am I wearing the right thing? Are people going to judge me for stuff? Am I going to talk too much, talk too little? Am I going to look weird? Am I going to go blank? Are people still going to be watching my video? All of these kinds of things, because you just get eaten alive by what ifs and just trying to plan the whole time. I mean, I'm one hell of a problem solver, because it's very rare nowadays that a problem comes up that I've not previously imagined and solved. So one day when I'm well enough to work again, I will be quite an asset, I think, to any problems that need solving and coming up with all eventualities. But certainly in life, it's exhausting and it's not much fun. Gosh, I am colouring these in a weird order. Apologies. Oh, and I can't remember if I actually told you both colour names. So the light yellow is number 24 and the dark yellow is number 44. But I'm definitely going to have to make sure I'm concentrating on this while I'm doing it, because otherwise I'm going to end up colouring something wrong, and that's going to really bother me. because I do like things to be uniform. And I'm amazed these pens are all right. I've had them for years. I haven't used them for over a year. And when I was swatching them earlier, one seemed a little bit dodgy, which is why I got some of the fine liners out in case one runs out. But all the rest seem absolutely fine. And I'm just hoping this is... Oh, don't know what happened there. Ignore that. But yeah, I'm hoping this is recording all right because I got a new phone yesterday and I'm still trying to get to grips with this. And I've got new recording equipment because right before I moved in October, my phone holder that I use for recording broke. So I had to try and work out what on earth to get so that it would go with my tripod and all of that. Right. So this one is number 33. Oh, I've got to make decisions again. Right, I'll do this down here, but I haven't decided how to do the bigger wings yet. So I might have to do all of the little ones and then see. But yeah, so far my phone hasn't come crashing down, the tripod hasn't collapsed. And it's quite good because I've got it set up so that if I stretch up in my chair, I can see the screen. So I can check it's still working and stuff. So I did have an awful experience at one point when I was filming with my old setup and I couldn't see the screen. And I was merrily chatting away and colouring away and then realised that it had stopped recording about 15 minutes before I realised. So that was really fun. And I think that's part of why I sort of stopped doing colour alongs, because unless you show like the whole thing or only parts, it kind of loses quite a lot sort of in translation. So as ever, what I'm doing isn't very polished, but I'm hoping that's part of my charm, because I know that anyone who's watched any of my previous videos knows that what I do is not polished, but it is real. So hopefully that's good enough, because I'm really not capable of polish. I would never produce anything at all on YouTube if it had to be polished. So rough and ready has to do. Rough and ready and brightly coloured. But yeah, I can't believe how long ago I moved, because we bought the flat in October, end of October, and then moved on the 2nd of November after I spent a very frantic 6 days painting the place while Joe was training for his new job. And then it was Christmas, and it's just been crazy. There's been so much to do, and then obviously we ended up with this pandemic and half the year's disappeared, and we've got various difficulties going on at home. Well, not at home, we're fine, but with our personal lives. So there's been a lot to keep us distracted, not in a particularly good way. So that's why the colouring's gone by the wayside. But as I said, I have been doing some other creative stuff. So I've wanted to do embroidery for ages, and my nana always used to do embroidery. and I did a GCSE in creative textiles, but there was nowhere near as much embroidery in that as I wanted, and my teacher was always trying to get me to go away from the embroidery and do other things. And before Christmas, I can't remember why I thought of it, possibly something on Instagram or something like that, I don't remember. But I suddenly thought, actually, I really would like to do that, because I've done bits of sewing over the years, and I do really enjoy it. But I finally got sort of spurred on. So for Christmas and my birthday, I asked for some embroidery books and some embroidery threads. And I finally got going at the beginning of lockdown. So here in the UK, that was in March. And I've been really enjoying it. So at some point, I'll have to do a video showing some of the things I've made. But yeah, that's sort of been taking up my time when I'm not just sat staring into the distance or watching TV. Right. I'm still not sure how to do these wings. Let's do the bodies. I love green. Green's my absolute favourite colour. I love blue as well, but green is, I think, kind of this green actually, this green from the body. Oh, I've just realised I haven't told you numbers. So the light green is 33, the mid green is 43, and the dark green is number 36. See, not polished. Could definitely do better, I think. But never mind. I haven't forgotten any yet, I don't think. So I'm not doing too badly. It's because I'm talking. I get distracted. Do that bit in the antenna as well. Yeah, I'm really dreadful at multitasking on camera. I'm pretty good in everyday life, but not on camera. Mind you, I can't colour and talk on the phone either. I often try, but I get too distracted and then I just end up stopping, so I don't bother starting now. Get too busy talking. Takes over. Okay, so we'll go back to the light green to do the wing tips. But yeah, it was good fun decorating the place when we moved, because I've only decorated once before, and that was a room, like one bedroom, I think about 10 years ago, and I hated it. And I wasn't great at it. I think it turned out that the wallpaper I think it must have been liner paper on the walls, but I think it had the wrong adhesive or something, because when we painted it, it went all bubbly. So it was a bit of a disaster. So I was absolutely dreading decorating here. Like I really wanted to decorate, and it needed decorating because everything was cream, but it had been touched up with the wrong colour cream. So there were all these patches on the walls. And Joe and I really aren't cream people. We love bright colours. So the plan always was to decorate. And we needed to do it before we moved in, because I have so much stuff that I knew that if we didn't do it before we moved in, then it was never going to happen. But yeah, it was quite frantic doing it. But it went really well. Like, we had a bit of a disaster in the bedroom because it turned out that the wallpaper was really quite difficult to get off. Thankfully, only that room was wallpapered. All the others just had to be sugar scrubbed and then painted. But yeah, there was a lot to be done in the main bedroom. But it does look really lovely now, and we absolutely love the colours that we chose. It's very, very us. And there's a different colour in every room. So it looks a bit like an artist's palette or something. So we've got 2 different blues in the lounge, which is where I am now. And then two different greens in the main bedroom, which actually one of them is surprisingly like this dark green. And then in the second bedroom, we've got I can't remember what it was called. It was like Icy Fresh or something. But it's this sort of pale bluey, greeny, whitey colour. But it's really lovely, but it's really strange because when the light changes in there, the colour of that paint really changes. So it does often look like something's happened to the paint, but it is just whether there's sun in there or not, and whether it's sort of white light or yellow light. And we never got as far as painting the hall, so that's still patchy cream, but it's got lots of my photography up. So it's got lots of bright nature pictures, lots of flowers and ducks and deer and things. So, and a very brightly coloured rug, which is lovely. So yeah, we're very pleased. At some point I will try and be brave and do a video tour of the flat, because I've had requests, but I haven't quite worked out how to do it. And again, I don't have a huge amount of confidence for it, so I have to try and work up to that. And make sure the place is really tidy, because at the moment I'm sat next to washing, which thankfully you can't see, but I don't need that on my videos. Right. Well, we're working through this quite quickly. I wondered if I was going to be on here for hours and hours, because I never time myself when I colour, but sometimes it feels really, really quick, and then other times, God, does it drag. I often feel like a bit of a fraud, because I do love creative stuff, but I'm not hugely patient. So if I'm really enjoying something, I will sit and do it for hours and hours. But part of what keeps me able to do it for hours and hours is like flitting about and changing colour and stuff. So like I can't do the same thing for hours and hours. So I would not be able to just colour with this green for 4 hours, because I think I'd end up stabbing out my own eyes. So as long as I sort of change it up, I don't mind it so much. And I really like to be able to see progress. So quite often I will colour like this, or like I did with the yellows, where I do like a whole butterfly at once, because then you've kind of finished one bit and it feels more finished than doing half of 4 butterflies, even though actually it's less that you've done. For some reason it does just look like you've sort of finished more. I think because it's an actual complete bit, which is why I like colouring postcards so much, because they're much smaller and they're less overwhelming. But I think these calendars are good because it is just one page. And also because it's sort of single-sided, it means you can use pretty much anything, and the paper in these calendars is really good. So I will be reviewing it, and I don't know when I'll be posting this in relation to the review, but do check the description box because any links that are relevant will be in there. Right, so we're on to the blues. Oh, and the blues I found a bit tricky to decide on. So I'm trying to work out whether to still use 4, because those were the 4 I liked, or whether to do it like this yellow, because actually I've just realised that the ones that I'm going to do blue are the same shape and pattern. I'm a bit torn. I'm trying to work out. Well, let's start over here. And we'll start and we'll see where we end up, because it would be nice to use more colours if I can. Even though I said earlier less is more, sometimes a bit more is fine too. So I think that this page, I probably should have said earlier, I think this page is, what this image is taken from Ivy and the Inky Butterfly. So obviously this has been blown up hugely compared to the original in the book. And actually this calendar is really interesting because it's got a real range, because it's got pictures taken from all of the different books that Johanna has done. It's got a real range of like intricacy levels and different content. So it's really good for people like me who can concentrate sometimes and then not others. Because yeah, some of the pages in here I just wouldn't have coped with today. But this one actually is really manageable. Oh, and I haven't told you the colour. So this is number 32. And if you do colour along with this, do let me know. Because it is nice to see that people have followed along, and let me know what you think of the video and the process and all of that. Normally when I'm doing these, especially with pencils, I would zoom the camera in, but I haven't this time, mostly because I'm trying to get to grips with the camera on this new phone. And also because it's only pen, so you don't need to see kind of what technique I'm doing. You can see what I'm doing. I'm colouring. I'm not changing pressure or doing anything. Like, I'm just colouring in the same direction. So hopefully it's easy enough to follow along. But in future, once I've got to grips with the phone a bit better, I will try and do slightly more detailed videos with pencils again, once I've worked my way back up to that. Which I guess I'm going to have to do if I'm going to actually fulfill my mission of colouring a whole calendar. I can't even remember how many I've got. I must have about 10. It's really bad. I mean, I intend in my lifetime to colour all of them and frame some of the pages. I've got all sorts of very grand plans. But I just haven't quite got as far as doing it. Not yet, anyway. Okay. Oh gosh, I've got to try and decide on other colours now. Right, I'll do this one. So this is number 57. And part of the reason I'm colouring where I am rather than how I normally would is because I'm quite warm, and because I'm using pen, I don't want my skin on any of the bits I'm colouring if I can possibly help it, which is also why I worked from the inside out. That wasn't just because I was doing it in rainbow order, because obviously I could have done it backwards through the colours, but it was so that I wasn't putting my hands and arms all over the bits I've coloured, because it can like pick up ink, and I've had to close all my windows because with living in flats it's quite noisy. So I'm quite warm. I also downed a pint of tea before I came on camera, so I was absolutely boiling. I have at least cooled down a little bit since then. Okie doke. So the next one we'll do is number 41. This is one of my favourite colours. I love this. Right, so I'm going to do the body. and these bits, I think. I do hope this is going to work out. So far it's working out. I always worry the closer I get to the end, the higher the stakes are to not mess it up. And I can feel my brain working away, trying to make sure that I don't colour in the wrong place. But yes, it is very counterintuitive, at least for me, to be colouring things up the wrong way. It does really kind of mess with my brain. Even though I'm really quite good spatially and visually. I've got no idea how good I'll be at parking because I haven't ever learnt to drive, but I'm pretty good at things. I'm dreadful at volume. So like if I make food and then I need to put it in a Tupperware container, if it's a different shape or size from the pan, I cannot for the life of me work out properly if it'll fit, if it's close. Like obviously if it's like 3 litres of stuff and I'm trying to wedge it into a 1 litre container, then like I'm not completely clueless. But if I've got a circular pan and then a square tub, I find it really hard to know if stuff will actually fit. But generally, kind of spatially, I'm pretty good. I think part of it's because I've danced all my life. Oh, did I tell you that number? So that was 41. We're now on number 11. So yeah, it might be because I've danced since I was 3. So I've got a lot of awareness of kind of where my body is in relation to other things. I've completely lost what I was saying and why, so that point will just have to not be made for the moment. I'm sure there was one. Oh, that was it. It was about turning it upside down. Because yes, it does bother my brain, even though I can mentally rotate shapes, like when you do those IQ tests and things, or like brain training games. I can work out like which flat cube makes the cube that's pictured and things like that. But yeah, for some reason, doing this, probably because I'm so out of practice and desperately trying to think of something to say. Not even something interesting, just something at this point. It's definitely going against what my brain wants to be doing. But it's probably good for it, so it's like eating vegetables, isn't it? They don't taste great, but you know they're probably good, so you deal with eating them. At least I do. I was promised I'd grow into liking vegetables, and I still mostly don't. And I'm turning 30 at Christmas. So that was definitely missold to me. I'm not thrilled by that lightest blue. It's really quite pale, but never mind. Right. Gosh, we're on the home stretch now. So the purples. So for some unknown reason, this lilac colour is only available in the fine liners. They don't do the felt tip of it. So yeah, it's going to be a bit slower because the nibs are tiny. In fact, actually, I will just show you the difference in these so that you can see. I've got no idea if this is focusing. Apologies, because I don't use this phone and know how it works yet. But yes, obviously the fine liners at the top and the fibre tip pens at the bottom. So they're really quite different. So I'm going to use the fibre tip pen first. Right. Oh, and there's more of these. I've just realised there were 4 of all of those. And now I've got, I think, 8 of these purple ones. Don't worry, I can count. It's just right now I'm trying to not go over the lines, so I'm not looking around the page. I am capable of counting. Let's stop. Yes, so there's 8 of those. Gosh, and then there's, I think, 12 of the little ones, which I'm going to do pink. So this purple is number 55. Gosh, you can tell my brain's busy because it's flitting about all over the place. But how I'm talking is like a dumbed down version of what it's like in my brain, which is why I'm tired a lot. Because it's very busy. It's also weird colouring quite so far away from me because normally, as I say, I sit all hunched up and it's on my knees. So I'm usually much closer, but if I did that now, you'd just get the back of my head. So I'm having to try and practice doing this a bit further away, but it's not terribly easy. Right, I'm going to do the whole of this butterfly. I don't know why, I just am. So the fine liners are a bit trickier to colour with, but again, you want the same technique of going forwards and backwards, not doing it in lines. And again, you can hear that they are making a noise, but they're not scratchy. And these are by far my favourite fine liners for the colours and for how they colour, because you can see I hold my pen quite upright and they don't, just don't know if that's focusing at all, I don't think it is, but I'm hoping that you can see that it has quite a flat end rather than a pointy end, which really lends itself to people who colour like I do. If you don't colour like I do, then you will probably hate these. My partner certainly does. And in that case, I would definitely recommend the Statler fine liners because those have a really pointy tip, which is dreadful for colouring upright, like I do. But it's really good for if you hold your pen more like that. And as you've probably noticed, I colour differently depending on what I'm holding. I'm like it when I write as well. I move my hand a lot. I think because I have quite a lot of issues with my joints. So my hands tend to seize up quite quickly. So I move them quite a lot so that I don't end up sort of cramping or anything like that. So you can see that again I'm doing, because this is a wider area and I can't accurately colour just straight up and down. So I'm doing little bits up, little bits down, little bits up, little bits down. And there you can see that it's gone quite smooth. So it does work really well, this technique. And if you work quite quickly, you can then join up sideways. But you can see that that bit has shown up slightly darker. I say you can see that, I've got no idea if you actually can, sorry. Eventually I'll get to grips with this technology. I was just getting to grips with the old phone and then it started dying. So, ho-hum, hopefully this one will last longer because I only had that one for about 18 months. And I'm very, very careful with technology, so I was quite miffed, but Joe talked me into getting a new one. And I was quite sold by the camera on this because it's got a triple camera. So I've currently got this set on wide, which is probably why it's not then focusing when I'm trying to show you stuff up close. So I'm going to need to play about with it and work out how on earth it works. But I'm amazed at how long it's recording for, because normally, like on all of my old phones, they've only recorded for up to 30 minutes. And this, you've managed to sit through best part of an hour. So apologies, I bet you're all thrilled. I say all, there's probably two of you. But at least it's keeping me busy, so I don't mind. And hopefully someone's watching this far through. Oh, and I don't think I told you this colour number. So this is number 59, this lilac colour. Just colouring in the antenna. So actually for this, I will see if I can actually. Oh, too far. There we go. Right, let's see. Hopefully that's a bit clearer of what I'm actually doing. So quite often I colour in quite a sort of circular motion with pens and with pencils. Kind of works quite well with both. Just seeing if I can. No, wrong direction. There we go. Right, let's see how that does. But you can see they're not remotely streaky if you colour quite accurately, and I've had so much practice with these pens because they're my favourites. So they do take a little bit of getting used to. But you can get a really smooth finish even with such a fine point. I'm wondering if you can actually. Oh, it still won't focus. I don't know. Oh, there we go. It's because I'm pointing it in the wrong place where the camera is. That helps. Right, so for this I'm going to turn it sideways so that it's a bit easier to colour forwards and backwards. And of course I've done exactly what I said I wasn't going to do and put my hand all over what I'm working on. Hopefully I'm not too hot now. Oh, and I've forgotten that I'd zoomed in, so God only knows if that was on screen. It probably wasn't, sorry. It's funny, there is an awful lot to remember when you're trying to do this stuff. And you don't even think about it when you're just doing it normally. And then as soon as you're on camera, you're thinking, oh my God, because I get up quite a lot. So I just go for random little walks around the flat, which again, can't do on camera. And then obviously you notice that you've got allergies and that you've got no tissues or anything near you. And you just become so conscious of absolutely everything that you're doing. I mean, it's probably just me that has that happen, but you've got a pretty good insight today into the workings of my little brain. So I think this is all coming together quite nicely. And I say that quite confidently because I know that it's absolutely nothing to do with talent. It's all to do with these fabulous pens and the lovely colours that they come in. Because as you can see, they just work. They're really good together. So occasionally you can kind of match up some very odd colour combos, but generally, if you go with the proper rainbow, you can't really go wrong. So here I'm doing quite circular motion so that I don't end up with little white bits in between. And I do find that when you're doing larger bits, especially with fine liners, you kind of have to just commit and just go for it. Because if you keep taking your pen off the page, it starts drying and causing all sorts of problems. So if you just sort of keep going. So here I'm trying to keep the bit before wet so that it doesn't create that double coloured line bit. Gosh, there's a lot of these purple ones. I'm looking forward to doing the pink because they're nice and little. And then I need to work out what I'm going to do for all these bits in between. I'm thinking I'm probably going to do them black because they should contrast everything else really nicely. I'm hoping that once I've done all of this with my enforced digital detox, that my internet and or my TV will be working so I can binge straight after this. Otherwise I'm going to have to find something else to do. But usually that involves snacking, so I'll have to try and find something else. I might have to do some pink in a minute because I'm getting a bit bored of this purple and lilac. I think 4 was a good amount. But it is definitely really coming together. And actually I hadn't realised how much colouring was helping me with other hobbies. So I realised when I started doing the embroidery, because I'm trying to learn how to do something called needle painting, which is where you use 1 or 2 strands of thread usually to try and create really quite realistic pictures. And I haven't properly kind of embarked on it yet. So far I have just been doing kind of landscapey stuff, but not trying to make it look like a photograph. But that's kind of the ultimate aim. But knowing more about how colours work together and how the eye perceives colour from just doing colouring and learning, it has really helped, because I've always really struggled with art because I find drawing very, very difficult, and I find getting what's in my head onto paper in any way really, really tricky. And actually, once you know more about colour, it's really useful because you're able to kind of make better choices about how to get the threads to work together, or the paints, or the pastels, or colouring pencils, or felt tip pens, whatever. Like the theory is all the same for them. Right, so I am bored of the purple, so we're going to go on to pink for a bit, and this is the darker pink, and this is number 56. But yeah, I'm really pleased that I've learnt so much about colour, because it has really, really helped. And I think it helped with like decorating my flat and stuff as well, because ordinarily I would never have gone for such bold colours, because I kind of thought that they wouldn't work together, or that they'd be kind of too striking or something like that. And actually I am so glad that we went really bold, because it works. And I'd have been so sad for it to be really pale and pastel-y and not kind of in your face. So I'm really looking forward to being able to have some visitors, because we haven't had very many people around because of lockdown. We spent ages unpacking and trying to get the flat really nice, so we were deliberately not inviting most people because we wanted to kind of unveil it once it didn't have floor to head height piles of boxes in every room and assault courses to try and get around. And then lockdown happened, so we've not been able to show it off, but hopefully very, very soon we'll be able to be doing that kind of thing. So this is number 17. I'm not sure what colours to do the body. Possibly the darker pink. But I'm not sure that it matters really. Sorry, just realised I'm off screen again. I need to zoom out again in a minute, I think. Yeah, I think that sort of works. Yes, I definitely do feel a lot more relaxed than I did earlier, having done this now. Even though it's quite stressful trying to work out what to say and getting things on camera and all of that. It's funny, I tend to forget over time what helps me. I have to write lists and then go back to them and remember that yes, this does work. Even though it feels like it might not, it does actually work, it does help. Right, we'll go back to some purple again. But yeah, I use this colour scheme an awful lot in colouring. So some of the colours I don't use so much in the Stabilos, but lots of these I use a lot. And I ummed and ahed for ages about getting the big sets because they were really quite expensive when I got them. And I was absolutely desperate for more colours, but I really didn't know whether to kind of splash out. And I'm really glad I did, because there are some really lovely colours like the paler pink and some of the darker reds and things, because there's only one red in the regular set of fine liners. And yeah, they're a really nice set of colours. In fact, the only ones I really don't use are the neons. But I've never really used neon anything apart from highlighters. I don't tend to use neon. It's a bit too bright for me. going to zoom this out a bit because I've realised that it's auto-focusing a lot, which probably isn't hugely helpful. And yeah, the 50 set of each comes in metal tin, which is great, but the only thing I found really annoying is that they come in these, in fact I've got one here, they come in these plastic trays, but you can't lift them out properly. So I fashioned myself, I made these holes in both sides so that they can be lifted out, because these bits were just breaking, and they're that really flimsy plastic that just snaps. And I also put a piece of card behind, which I can't show you because the pens will tip out, because it's a double layered box, which is great because it's really compact, it takes up hardly any room. But yeah, I found the trays really annoying until I worked out actually if I put some string through, then I can easily get them in and out, and having the card underneath that the string is also through stops the tray from warping so much, and therefore makes it much less likely to snap. Oh, I've just realised I've missed a bit. Let's get the dark purple back. There we go. Gosh, I can hear the seagulls outside. I think they must have found some insects or something because there's loads of them. Making an awful lot of noise. That's a lovely thing about our new flat, is it's so much quieter here. I mean, obviously there is some noise because we are in flats, but no one has very young children. And so far, in the, 8 months we've lived here, we haven't heard a single person have an argument. It's absolutely brilliant, because the people who used to live underneath us used to argue most weeks, and have lots of drunken arguments, which were really fun, and lots of door slamming and screaming. And it's much calmer here and quieter. And even during lockdown, it's been a lot quieter, even though obviously everyone's been here. So one of our neighbours seems to game a lot, so he makes a fair amount of noise. But he's not an aggressive gamer, so it doesn't particularly bother us, which is good. And I think they've all gone back to work and school and stuff now, so it's been much quieter, because we were hearing him until about 1:30 every night. And it wasn't loud enough to keep us awake, but it was loud enough that it was annoying when you're trying to get to sleep. But yeah, that's really calmed down now. So yes, we're very pleased with the flat, despite all the difficulties and random stresses that we've had. And like I wrote a blog post about it, but we ended up with bailiffs here on my birthday for the previous owner. And his car got repossessed because it turned out he'd left that here with one of our parking permits in it. So thankfully, Joe was about when this car got repossessed and managed to get our parking permit out of it. So we've got that back for visitors. But yes, it was all quite dramatic, but it's calmed down a lot recently. And it certainly feels like home. Yes, this purple's going on a bit long, but we are nearly there. And hopefully you're colouring along with me, so I can't particularly imagine that I'm colouring particularly slowly, so you should be at about the same place as I am. There's me saying it's quiet and there's someone slamming their door. I think it must have got caught by the wind. Gosh, the seagulls are making so much noise. Don't know what's going on out there. So as I've said, I don't know sort of how often I'm going to be able to cope with videoing and doing things, but if you have any requests for anything, then do let me know and get in touch with me kind of however you wish. I can be found on Facebook. All of the links are in the description box for all of my videos. But you can leave me a comment on YouTube. And yeah, just let me know what it is that you're wanting, because I do take all of the things on board, much as I don't necessarily act on them particularly quickly. I do take on suggestions and try and create content that people actually want to see. I have to say, the spiral binding's not very comfy. Lots of people desperately want spiral binding, and I guess they don't colour like I am right now. But yeah, it's not very comfortable on my arm bone. But it is very handy for being able to turn the pages back on themselves, because obviously this is fairly huge because it's 30 centimetres by 30 centimetres. So when it's open, it's 30 by 60, which is a bit much for trying to manoeuvre around the table. Right, more purple. Well, it's definitely high pollen today. do get fed up with having allergies. Right, I'll do this bit as well. So we are nearly there, and then we'll do all of these in-betweeny bits. And I've got to really concentrate on those because obviously there are lines where the antenna are, which I don't want to colour in because otherwise you won't see the antenna. So I will definitely have to be focusing. It's so odd doing this now because I hadn't realised how much kind of almost stamina I'd built up before, because I was colouring like all day, every day for months and months. And then obviously now I've had absolutely months off. And yeah, my arm's getting a bit achy and my shoulder feels a bit weird, and right in this part of my arm feels like it's starting to twitch. And I'm definitely getting tired. This is, despite it seeming really basic, this is taking quite a lot of concentration, and yeah, it's definitely tiring me out. Probably all that talking. And the silence where I'm desperately racking my brain as to what to say. But hopefully it'll be worth it. Hopefully this will look lovely, and hopefully some of you will have learnt a little something and enjoyed just having a chill out and colouring and not having to decide on colours, and possibly learning a new colour scheme with these specific pens. And you could always colour match these with pencils, because rainbows work in any medium. They work in wool, they work in thread, they definitely work in paints, pencils, pens, everything. They are just fabulous. And the one tip I would give with rainbows is try and make sure that all of the colours that you use are the same vibrancy. So you don't want like a pastel-y orange and then a really vibrant red and yellow, because then the orange just kind of disappears. You need all of the colours to be really punchy and the same kind of brightness and vibrancy. But other than that, you really can't go wrong. Oh, we've got a circular saw going on outside now. I'm hoping that my phone is doing what it's meant to do and is tuning that noise out, because I've already closed windows and doors and sat here having my own personal sauna. So I'm hoping that you can't hear it. But it's quite distracting. That kind of thing really bothers my brain. Especially if I can't tell what it's like, where it's coming from or what the noise is. My brain always likes to know what's happening. I cope with things a lot better if I know what they are and why they are, and well, all of the W's: who, what, why, where, and how. I do worry in these videos because I do often think that I am just, in my desire to not have silence in them, I just let on about so many more of my weird traits and quirks and things that I spend a lot of time covering up. But equally, I think it is important to kind of be yourself and not pretend to be anything else, and clearly that's not something that I'm doing. So hopefully it'll make some of you feel a bit more normal, or very thankful that you're not like I am. Either of those is fine. So we're definitely on the home stretch now. We've got these last 3 little pink butterflies, and then we're onto the black, and desperately hoping that that's not going to ruin it all. But I couldn't work out any other colour to do. I could do grey, but I feel like it might look a bit strange. And I don't really want to do it all grey and then decide it would look better black and have to colour over all of it in black. So I think I'm just going to be brave and do it. And then if it looks awful, you can change yours. You can have the benefit of my hindsight. Oh, and if you ever think of things that you'd like me to talk about while I'm doing the videos, then please do let me know what those are, because that's where I definitely struggle the absolute most. I'm fine for a while, but I think because not a lot's been happening, and the stuff that has been happening I can't really talk about because it's personal, I'm at a bit of a loss. So when I randomly think of tips, obviously I'm saying those, but yeah, if you ever have anything you want me to talk about, do let me know. Right, so let's zoom that out, and that's the way up that it goes. So it's looking pretty good. Quite pleased with that. So let's go in at the deep end and start with this black and hope that it looks all right. I always get very nervous about using black because it is so bold, but it can be really, really good for contrasting against colours and making them really, really pop. And it's a bit late now that I've started. So hopefully it's looking all right. Gosh, I must have been concentrating too hard. I'm getting hungry now. I keep worrying that my tummy's going to growl. It's quite difficult to tell how this looks without sort of getting further away from it. I think the camera's probably picking it up better than my eyes will be because I'm a bit close to it. And my eyes have gone a bit funny from focusing for too long. But it's definitely looking vibrant, which is what I really wanted, so I think it's fulfilling the brief. And a couple of tips for filling in with black are, one is you can use preferably not waxy black pencil first and then go over it with a black pen. Usually you're best not using water-based pens, and Stabilo all are water-based pens, but the Faber-Castell Pitt pens have Indian ink. Don't ask me what that is because I don't know, but it's called Indian ink, and that is not water-based, and that's a more sort of pigmenty colour, and it's kind of a richer black than this is, because you can see this isn't actually properly totally black. It is sort of showing some colour through of the paper underneath. The other thing to make it even darker is once it's completely dry, and it must be dry or you will wreck your work, and it needs to be thick enough paper, so this would be, is colour it all in one direction and then turn it 90 degrees and colour horizontally across it, and that gives you a much, much deeper colour. And you can do that over the pencil as well. So you can do pencil and then vertical colouring with pen and then horizontal colouring with pen. And those give you a really quite good black colour. So I've only done it once because it's quite labour intensive, but it really does work, because doing a background like this, so if it was an actual background, it's just not black enough and it just looks a bit disappointing. So I have kind of found that when you're wanting to do a black background, you really want it to be like pitch black. And that's a good way of getting it there. Or I know that some people use, and I haven't got any, so I can't attest to it myself, but a lot of people use black Posca paint, or just like black acrylic, and that can work very nicely as well, because it's much more opaque. So it gives you better coverage. But I think this is going quite nicely. My hand's definitely getting achy now. It feels all stretched over my knuckles from lack of practice. I always find that whenever I do any of my hobbies, because I have these joint problems with my hands, so I do quite a lot of creative stuff, but they all use my hands differently, so I end up with aches and pains no matter what I do, because yeah, I do photography, I crochet, I sew, I colour, I bake, and all of those are very hands-on. But I'm also trying to not rush with this, because I want to make sure that I don't go over the lines, because especially with black, there's nothing worse because you really notice it. And possibly I should have done some of these black bits during colouring so that I'm not putting my hand all over things. I should probably have got a scrap bit of paper to stick my hand on. Those are all things you can do that I tend to not remember to do, but would be a good idea. So you can see here I'm colouring quite strangely, but mostly I'm just trying to keep the area that I'm colouring up to wet. And I don't know if it's showing on camera, but I can see where it's still wet, so I can see where it's going to go streaky and where it won't. But that's why I'm working quite quickly, but also in a slightly odd shape so that it all gets coloured, but doesn't look weird. But they are quite forgiving, these pens, I've found. Some are much better than others, and these are definitely up there as better ones. The Pitt pens are very good as well. I really like them. They're just slightly strange colours, but they're a lot more natural, so they're really good, but they don't have sort of these shades, so I found doing a rainbow in them a bit trickier. But they are really good for more natural colouring. And there's a lot more shades. I think there's 60 of those, whereas there's only about 46 or 47 of these. There's a few duplicates in the 50 tin, so it's not 50 colours. It does say about that it wasn't an error or anything. It says it on the listing. I think it's of the colours that get most used, which is handy. And bearing in mind the project, as I've said about, if people are interested in me attempting to do colour alongs for all of the pages in this, then do let me know. Because obviously there's no point me taking time out to film stuff if no one's going to watch it. But if people are interested, then I'm very happy to. I can't promise anything, but to at least try. Because yeah, I've actually really enjoyed this today. I don't mean that to sound as surprised as it sounds. I'm not surprised. I've always loved colouring, but it's just not something I've been doing recently. So it's been very nice to have a go again. Yeah, I don't know how much time I'm going to have coming up because we've got a lot on, but bearing in mind 2021 is quite a way away, I should be able to get some more done before the year starts. Right, we're nearly halfway, I think. So again, for these bigger bits, you're just wanting to keep it wet while you're going. And trying to be as accurate as possible so you don't go over the lines, which I have done slightly, but hopefully it's not too noticeable. The next thing I've got to learn to do with this new phone is trying to sort out photographs with it, because I never managed to photograph colouring or anything much very well. Like, I can photograph stuff in nature with my camera really well, but anything that's artificial, I just don't seem to be able to capture what it looks like to me in a photo. And I've tried adjusting things and editing and all sorts. So my old phone was really, really low on memory, so I was constantly having to just delete apps, even though I had a huge memory card that was only a third full. But I couldn't move anything else off the phone, and the phone was just getting more and more and more full and then not working, which was part of why I got this new one. But it meant I had to take all of the photo editing apps off there. And I know they work differently kind of with every phone, and the reason we got me this phone was because it has a very, very good camera, the reviews of which are very good. So I'm really hoping that I might be able to actually start taking some decent photos of colouring and my embroidery, because my embroidery is awful to photograph. I think because it's shiny, because it's thread, and obviously the light shines on it, the colour just is completely different. So like the few that I've done and then photographed and that I've then shown people in real life, every single person has said, oh gosh, it's so much nicer in real life, which is great. But it means that if I ever try and sell it or anything like that, which I would quite like to do, then people might not buy stuff because they don't think it's as nice as it is. So obviously it's lovely to have a nice surprise when they get the item and it looks better than pictured. But I do want it to look like it looks in real life so that people want the things. So I'm really hoping, I'm trying not to get my hopes up, but I am really hoping that I might be able to sort out my phone camera photography skills, or more the editing, because I know how to take photos. It's sorting out the editing of them. Well, we're nearly there with this black. And actually it was the black that made me think of saying about the camera, because black photographs really badly. Because as soon as you up the vibrancy and the brightness, the black just gets completely washed out and just looks grey. So I was thinking this is actually going to be so difficult to photograph. It does make you realise how amazing eyes are, because nothing else can do what they can. No technology can do what they do at the moment. Or they can do aspects really well, but not the combination of everything as our eyes can usually do. Though I guess at some point in my lifetime that might change. Who knows? I remember being so excited when I got my first mobile phone, and that was such a basic phone, and it had Snake on it and buttons and all of that. That was when I was 13, so that was nearly 17 years ago. And now I've got, in fact, when Joe was looking up the specifications of the phone, because he helped me get it, because I had no idea what to get, and decisions like that make me really anxious, so he usually helps me. And when he was looking up the specifications of it, it's got either the same or better specifications as our latest laptop, and our laptop's only, I think, 18 months old, and was a good one. It wasn't like the lowest of the range or anything. So it's absolutely nuts what you can have like in your pocket. It's crazy. And this isn't even one of the really expensive ones. Like I had no intention of paying hundreds and hundreds of pounds out for a phone. But yeah, it's got more megapixels than my camera has. It's got better RAM, more memory than the laptop, I think. Certainly more RAM. It's got all sorts. I mean, I don't know how to work it properly yet, but I think that just comes with practice and with time, because it's also a different brand from my last phone, so everything's in a different place and called something different and with a different colour and all of that, so I'm trying to get used to it all. But yeah, we're nearly there with this, which I'm very glad about, because yeah, my eyes are going all zizzy from focusing too much all at once. Right. And I hope I'm going to like this, because it's going to be up for 4 months, as it's got the end of year overview on it. And if I do like it, it's going to be on my kitchen door, which is pretty much the first thing you see when you come in our flat, because the kitchen's off to the left. So it's going to have to be good. Oh, I've just noticed I haven't coloured these antennae. Let's get the lilac back. Don't think I've missed any others. Let's do these last 2 black bits. Hopefully I've not missed any of those. Right, oh, stretch my hand. Right, so there we go. We are done. Thank you so much if you have watched all the way through to the end. I'm so sorry, you must be sick to death of the sound of my voice. I will just check that this hasn't bled through, but I expect it hasn't. No, it hasn't. There's absolutely no shadowing or anything there. Brilliant. So yeah, this was the 2021 Inky Wonderlands Johanna Basford colouring calendar. There will be a review. The link should be in the description. I've been using Stabilo fine liners and fibre tip pens. So those are the fine liners and those are the fibre tip pens. And I've been using the 50 set, so that's where you can find all of these colours. Not forgetting that the lilac is only available as a fine liner. I think I'll be putting links to those on Amazon UK in the description if you want to buy some, because they are fabulous pens, as you can probably tell. Please do give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe to my channel. Please comment, share with me your work, and let me know what you want me to be doing, because I definitely need a project and some distraction over the next few months. So yeah, don't be a stranger, and thank you so much for watching. Bye bye.